edition of Cheers to Careers. I'm Steve Ridinghouse, the Career Outreach Coordinator at the School of Journalism and Mass Communications at KU. Hello and welcome to another episode of Cheers to Careers. I'm Steve Ridinghouse, the Career and Outreach Coordinator for the KU School of Journalism and Mass Communications. Today we have Nick Couzin, 2018 grad, currently the sports anchor and reporter at WHBF-TV in Rock Island, Illinois. Welcome, Nick.
It's good to be here, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
And I know you're in town. You're in town for last night's KU-Texas game, a great game. What was it like just to watch a game and not have to worry about covering it, meeting a deadline? What was that feeling like?
It's always weird because you're always in that sports reporter mindset. You're thinking about storylines throughout the whole game. Like last night, I'm looking at, wow, KU scored 88 points, but only 2 of those came from Jalen Wilson as their leading scorer. I'm like, there's the story of the game right there. Everybody else scoring. So it's a little different. I was back as a fan, so a couple little fist pumps or like let's go, like in your head, but you try not to show it too much,
And I know you've been at Rock Island, I believe, for about 6 months. What kind of stories do you get to cover there? Do you get to cover some college sports?
Oh yeah, Iowa is an hour away, and also being right on the Illinois-Iowa border, people are Iowa State fans as well, Illinois fans, so. Being part of a Next Star station, we have a big share system, so we do stories on University of Illinois, Iowa State, University of Iowa, so it's all around. And then obviously, just kind of like here in Lawrence, big high school presence, with close towns like Eudora and the kinds of things like that. There's other close towns there around Illinois and Iowa side that we cover, so a lot of busy times there.
And I know before you started there, I believe you're 4 years in North Dakota and Fargo. This is my 35th episode. I'm trying to get an alum from every state. Can I still count North Dakota?
Yes, you can count North Dakota and Iowa. I'll cross out 2 for you.
So what did you cover in North Dakota? I think you covered even some hockey, right?
I did, yes. So North Dakota State was the big college in Fargo, about 5-10 minutes from my old station. So a lot of people cared about them, and if you follow FCS football, they're the best team in the FCS. They've won 10 of the last 12 national championship games, so I got to cover 3 of those when I was down there, going to Texas when it was negative 40 degrees in January, and go and enjoy some warm weather down there and watch some football, see some trophies being raised. And then University of North Dakota, which always has top 10, top 15 hockey team in the country, always produces NHL talent. They're about an hour away, so got to go up there for a couple games, cover them, and that was always fun. And when I left there, it was also cool because I had a lot of good relationships with the coaches and got some swag, North Dakota hockey, polo, and North Dakota State basketball, jackets. So it's nice to get those relationships and keep them going even though I'm gone from there now.
And it seems like you took a lot of pride in building those relationships. I follow you on social media, and I remember you did a great job of when you were leaving, or even actually throughout your time there, just building those relationships with the coaches and the athletes. Is that something you kind of take a lot of pride in?
Oh, for sure. It's a big deal because if you can have a good relationship with coaches, players, that's how you find stories, and like the good stories that nobody else sometimes has too. And it's just always good to have those relationships because you never know, even down the road, even when I'm gone, like those coaches may go somewhere else, and I may be covering their team, or they may know some other coach I'm covering, or that kind of thing, and they can say like, hey, Nick Couzin's a good guy. You could tell him whatever, and you can trust him with whatever you need. So yeah, it's always good. And that's a big part of the whole industry, just in general, just have connections.
And if I seem to recall, from time to time, once you slip away on a Sunday, maybe catch a Vikings game?
I did, yeah. I went to a couple Vikings games, especially when Carson Wentz was on the Eagles. He came and played the Vikings, so I got to go cover that game. Adam Thielen, as we know, all-pro wide receiver, he was from our viewing area, like about 30, 45 minutes away from Fargo. So he would come in the summer and do kids camps, and I even got to run a couple of drills in one of the camps, and kind of had established a relationship with him. And every time he came back, I would always get a one-on-one interview with him, or he saw me in the locker room a couple of times when I was down at the Vikings games, and he said, "Hey, what's up, man?" So it's just cool stuff like that.
And you talked about covering hockey. Was that a sport you were familiar with?
Oh, yeah.
Before you got there?
I grew up as a Blackhawks fan, saw some Stanley Cups when I was in high school, and even the back end of their dynasty was when I was here at KU in 16. So I grew up watching, and my sister also played Division I hockey as well, and was a really good high school player in Illinois. So, yeah, I grew up watching the game, and it's awesome. Fast-paced, checking, great environment.
And I know you came to KU from Chicago. Was KU always on your radar, or how did that What's that story? How did you get
So
to KU?
I took a bunch of different visits, about like 10 to 12 schools, just kind of like looked in the Midwest because my sister went to school out east in Boston, and my parents wanted me to stay in the Midwest, so I just looked at all these. Midwest has a lot of good journalism schools, and I narrowed down my two choices to here and Ohio University, because those were the two furthest drives you could do in a day. Just kind of jab at my parents a little bit. And then I came here a second time. I made my initial visit, and everybody was just so welcoming as far as like the journalism school professors. And when I came back a second time, I was just walking around campus, and I just felt I was at home here.
And I know you seem to do a great job of still staying in touch with a lot of your professors. I know Cal, I think you spoke to his class.
Yeah, I spoke to his high-level 558 class, I think it was, yesterday, just about, career, like what we're doing here, just kind of like some career advice, just saying like, hey, anything's possible. You can make it out of here and chase after your dreams. And then Max Utzer, he was also a professor here as well. He's been retired a couple of years, but he had a big influence on my time here as well. He was my professor for a lot of my upper-level classes, and he helped me as well because he knows a lot of people in the industry, and he actually invited me to stay at his house. So that's where I was at last night.
Awesome. And I think I remember correctly. Was it last fall? I know Max is a Knox grad. Did you cover a story there? Was he involved in that somehow?
So Galesburg, where he's from, is in our viewing area at my news station, and he told me he was going to go there for alumni weekend because Knox College is in Galesburg. That's where he went. He used to play football there for his undergrad, and there wasn't really a lot going on that Saturday, so I was like, I'll just come up there and cover the game. And I went up there a little early. He took me out to lunch, and got to hang out with him on the sidelines while I was shooting the game, and so it was fun. It was good.
So did Max play in the game?
No,
he didn't play. Okay.
It was almost like he wanted to, though. I mean, he was walking around like he owned the place, So it was almost like he wanted to play.
And I think my first year was your sophomore year here. And I remember you were always involved in campus media. Then you did a lot of internships off campus. How did you manage your time? I mean, I was amazed how many you did have when I looked at your LinkedIn profile. I mean, you were worked with 6 News in Lawrence. I forgot about your communications internship with Real Salt Lake. I do remember the NBC Olympics summer 2016. How did you find all those and manage your time?
Well, managing my time, I don't know. It just kind of happened. Like I just made time. My senior year, my last semester I only had like 9 credit hours, and then that time it was originally 8. And then the class you teach now, Dan McCarthy, who's my guidance counselor, used to teach. So I took that class for 1 credit hour. So I had a lot of time to go downtown to Channel 6 when it was Midco by the time I got there, and kind of work in the mornings and the afternoons, and then my classes that I did have were later in the afternoon, closer to the evening, so I could make a workout, and then in the evenings go help shoot games or whatever. Kevin Romery, who was the main guy there, used to do. So I kind of just worked out senior year, just not having a lot of classes to be able to manage my time that way. And then I knew on Fridays they didn't have a show, and it was all high school football. So Thursday was kind of the night that I did my socializing and had my fun with friends. And then just at like summers, I try to utilize those. Like you talked about the NBC Olympics one and Real Salt Lake, and I try to utilize my summers. But I have to give my sister some credit for that too, because she lived in New York when I was at NBC Olympics, so she had me stay at her house, and she had some friends that kind of helped me, because she used to work for NBC before they got bought by before Xfinity and all them merged. So she had some people there that kind of helped me, get used to that and get into there and have the connection there. And then when she moved out to Salt Lake City, I went out there and lived with her and my now brother-in-law while I was out there. And when I was out there, I just kind of applied to some places and I got that job with Real Salt Lake. And I also worked at their one of their CBS stations too. And I remember I wrote a couple papers for you for like one of the classes.
Oh yeah, for class credit.
For class credit from that internship, even though I wasn't getting paid. So I got something out of that extra too as well. And
it sounds like you do a great job of like being aware of your connections. Like you talk about staying with family members, or last night with a faculty member. Is that something you kind of always keep in mind? I mean, just how to make the most of your resources.
Yeah, for sure. And as much as you want to try to make money and whatnot, sometimes the money's not there. So you have to work your connections and try to find ways to, save money and stay at a professor's house. You don't have to pay for a hotel, or staying at your sister's house. You don't have to, pay for Airbnb or whatever for an extended period of time. So it's always good to just kind of find those ways to, when you can take advantage of an opportunity like that, to do that.
I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but was the career in sports broadcasting always part of the plan?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, when I was a little kid, I was like into construction and all that, but I wasn't very good at math or anything like that. So to be able to just look up stats and do all that stuff. And when I was a kid, the first sporting event I watched was a Bears game, and then as I got older, my uncle kept telling my dad, he was like, you should just have him get in front of the camera, and if he really wants to do this, just have him get in front of the camera. And KU gave me that opportunity. Like freshman year, I was already getting involved with Crossroads, where we're at now, in a different location back then, but it's cool to see that's in the journalism school now. So just to be able to, just chase after that and always just kind of believe is what I wanted to do. Yeah, it was awesome. And my favorite memory still, was when the Bears were in the Super Bowl and Devin Hester ran back the kick, but then we don't have to talk about the rest of the outcome of that game.
You were in Fargo, Rock Island, so you're getting closer to your hometown.
Mm-hmm.
Was that always kind of the plan to do sports close by Chicago?
Not originally. I just kind of wanted to go, I was young, I wanted to get out and explore some new places. So I applied everywhere when I first got out of school. Fargo happened to just be the first place. But, with COVID and all that happening, and as long as I was there and had to deal with kind of the rough winters, as I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, I was like, yeah, maybe I should, get a little closer to home. And I did apply to other places as well, further from home. And I think it was just kind of like, this was kind of like the place, 2.5 hours from home. My family can come see me now, and I have a little more free time as well that I didn't really have at my last job. And it's just, I think it's just kind of like this was meant to be where I'm at now.
And I know with media and sports media, I mean, it's fast moving, technology is always evolving. Do you feel like the skills you gained here at KU have prepared you well?
Oh, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of different things, especially when I was here, social media was growing, and we always, for whatever shows we did or whatever events I was at, I always knew, we got to push this out on social media, and professors always, talking about multimedia. I remember the one class I took with Max and Scott Renardi also, he's still a professor here as well. We went to the Royal Spring Training as one of our capstone classes, and that whole class was built around multimedia. We had to go down to Royal Spring Training, not only do interviews, but get video, get pictures, then put it all online and have some hyperlinks to other different things, and just have some different elements to everything. So that was always an emphasis here, and I knew that was important, especially in sports, because that's where everybody gets their news. Everybody's going on Twitter and saying, oh, wow, look, Kyrie Irving traded to the Mavericks. Everybody sees it on Twitter, So
you touched on this a little bit earlier about watching the KU-Texas game. I mean, looking for the storylines. I mean, what do you think makes a great sports story? I know it can vary from day to day. I mean, is there one thing you look for, a couple things you look for?
I think it's just, finding ways to grab attention in a story, or maybe kind of relating it to something that people in the viewing area can relate to as well. You can do that really with high school. I mean, you've covered some high school, people can relate to that. There's always good sister stories, of a local team that's really good. Or when I was at North Dakota State, one of the top players on their team, I was just looking on his Instagram story, and I saw when they were on a West Coast trip, he had a freak injury happen where in a practice he got elbowed in the liver and he lacerated his liver, and overnight, before a game, he started bleeding internally, and they had to call an ambulance and everything. So when he got back, I interviewed him, the coach, and the roommate, which was also on his team, and then he's supposed to be out a month or two, but he said he comes back in a couple weeks, and the first game back he drops 40 points in the game. So that's another kind of story there that hey, NDSU fans, they know he's the best player, but they probably didn't know that all this other stuff happened, and so just to kind of tell that story is gravitates people towards it. So I think it's a lot of human interest and also just relatability.
Well said, Nick. Hey, again, I appreciate you dropping by on such short notice.
No
it was
problem,
a quick trip, and it's been fascinating to watch your career get started at KU and what you've been doing the last, it's hard to believe, 5 years since you graduated?
Yeah, coming up in May, yeah.
So, Nick, CheerstoCareers. Again,
you.
I appreciate it. Thanks.